All right, good morning, boys and girls, and we are back to the miraculous journey of Edward Tulane. And yesterday, Bryce took Edward to meet Lucius Clark because Edward had been damaged at Neil's diner. And so Lucius Clark made a deal with um, Bryce, and there were two options that was given to Bryce. He told him that if he could not pay for the repair work, that Bryce could then seek assistance from somewhere else to help pay for it, or that Lucas would fix Edward to the best of his abilities, but then Lucius would then keep Edward. Okay, and it would be for him to sell. So today we are going to read chapter 24 and 25. Hi, Judith. Did you want to come up and say hi to everybody? Come here. You can say hi. All right, so Judith is here to say hi for a second. She just came in from getting a walk. She's ruining all of our stuff. She's back. Okay. Hi, Judith. Hi, Judith. Okay. All right. Judith is very excited. Okay, go on. Woo! She's a whirlwind. All right. So we're going to get back to reading. I got spit all over me, dog spit. Okay. So this is chapter 24. Chapter 24 has a lot of different questions, but they're very intense questions that you have to write extended answers to. So one of them is when Bryce came back into the shop, this is what Lucius told Bryce. Young man, I am afraid that we made a deal. And then you're to think about, why do you think Lucius acts this way towards Bryce? And do you think that Lucius was being nice? And then it goes on to ask you to think about how Edward feels about dolls, because in fact, Edward has a lot to say about dolls. Edward never cared for dolls. He found them annoying, self-centered, twittery, and vain. And then it asks you to think about how Edward described dolls throughout the chapter. And then down below it says, Edward told the doll that he had already been loved. He told her, I have been loved by a girl named Abilene. I have been loved by a fisherman and his wife, and a hobo and his dog. I have been loved by a boy who played the harmonica and a girl who died. Don't talk to me about love. I know love. So they want you to think about in your own life, think about yourself being loved, and think about the people that do love you, and how you can show them that you love them. So that's chapter 24 and 25, which we are going to read today. So here we go. Chapter 24. And so Edward Tulane was mended, put together again, cleaned and polished, dressed in an elegant suit, and placed on a high shelf for display. From the shelf Edward could see the whole shop, Lucius Clark's workbench, and the window to the outside world, and the door to the customers used to enter and leave. From the shelf Edward saw Bryce open the door one day and stand in the threshold, the silver harmonica in his left hand flashing brilliantly in the sunlight flooding in through the windows. "Young sir," said Lucius, "I'm afraid that we made a deal." And there you can see Lucius and Bryce, and there's Edward. "Can't I see him?" asked Bryce, and he wiped his hand across his nose, and the gesture filled Edward with a terrible feeling of love and loss. "I just want to look at him." Lucius Clark sighed. "You may look," he said. "You may look, and then you must go and not come back. I cannot have you in my shop every day mooning over what you have lost." "Yes, sir," said Bryce. Lucius sighed again. He got up from his workbench and went to Edward's shelf and picked him up and held him so that Bryce could see him. "Hi, Jangles," said Bryce. "You look good. The last time I seen you, you looked terrible. Your head was busted in and—" "He he is put together again," said Lucius, "as I promised you he would be." Bryce nodded, and he wiped his hand across his nose. "Can I hold him?" he asked. "No," said Lucius. Bryce nodded again. "Tell him good-bye," said Lucius Clark. "He is repaired. He has been saved. Now you must tell him good-bye." "Good-bye," said Bryce. "Don't go," thought Edward. "I won't be able to bear it if you go." "And now you must leave," said Lucius Clark. "Yes, sir," said Bryce. But he stood without moving, looking at Edward. "Go," said Lucius Clark. "Go." "Please," thought Edward, "don't." Bryce turned. He walked through the door of the doll mender's shop. The door closed. The bell tinkled. And Edward was alone. Chapter 25. And there are all those dolls. Technically, of course, he was not alone. Lucius Clark's shop was filled with dolls. Lady dolls and baby dolls, dolls with eyes that opened and closed, and dolls with painted on eyes, dolls dressed as queens, and dolls wearing sailor suits. Edward had never cared for dolls. He found them annoying and self-centered, twittery and vain. His opinion was immediately reinforced by his first shelf mate, a china doll with green glass eyes and red lips and dark brown hair. She was wearing a green satin dress that fell to her knees. "What are you?" she said in a high-pitched voice when Edward was placed on the shelf next to her. "I am a rabbit," said Edward. The doll let out a small squeak. "You're in the wrong place," she said. "This is a shop for dolls, not rabbits." Edward said nothing. "Shoo," said the doll. "I would love to shoo," said Edward, "but it is obvious that I cannot." After a long silence the doll said, "I hope you don't think that anyone is going to buy you." Again Edward said nothing. "The people who come in here want dolls, not rabbits. They want baby dolls or elegant dolls, such as myself. Dolls with pretty dresses, dolls with eyes that open and close." "I have no interest in being purchased," said Edward. The doll gasped. "You don't want someone to buy you?" she said. "You don't want to be owned by a little girl who loves you?" Sarah Ruth, Abilene, their names went through Edward's head like the notes of a sad, sweet song. "I have already been loved," said Edward. "I have been loved by a girl named Abilene. I have been loved by a fisherman and his wife, and a hobo and his dog. I have been loved by a boy who played the harmonica, and by a girl who died." "Don't talk to me about love," he said. "I have known love." This impressed speech shut up Edward's shelf mate for a considerable amount of time. "Well," she said at last, "still, my point is that no one is going to buy you." They did not speak to each other again. The doll was sold 2 weeks later to a grandmother who was purchasing her for a grandchild. "Yes," she said to Lucius Clark, "that one right there, the one with the green dress. She is quite lovely." "Yes," said Lucius, "she is, isn't she?" And he plucked the doll from the shelf. "Good-bye and good riddance," thought Edward. The spot next to the rabbit stayed vacant for some time. Day after day the door to the shop opened and closed, letting in early morning sun or late afternoon light, lifting the hearts of the dolls inside, all of them thinking when the door swung wide that this time the person entering the shop would be the one who wanted them. Edward was the lone contrarian. He prided himself on not hoping, on not allowing his heart to fill inside of him. He prided himself on keeping his heart silent, immobile, close tight. "I'm done with hope," thought Edward Tulane. And then one day at dusk, right before he closed the shop, Lucius Clark placed another doll on the shelf next to Edward. Well, I hope you enjoyed the last 2 chapters, and I'll put a couple of questions on, but it'll be very short and abbreviated because these are thinking questions that you can just kind of think to yourself. Um, But think about, do you think Lucius acted um, in a kind way, in a stern way? How do you think Lucius was acting towards Bryce and why? And then the other question was, think about all the people that you love and how you can show them that you love them. All right, I hope you enjoyed today, and we will start again with chapter 26 tomorrow. Take care.